So I wake up one morning to this. Everything is covered in ice. And I'm thinking, you know what? This is your first winter in retirement. What are you doing here when you could be here? So I talked to my wife. We plan a trip. I'm going to head down there to Florida for a week by myself. She'll meet me for a second week, but here I got to pack everything up for a week of camping and a week of fishing. And that includes my new Sea Eagle inflatable kayak, the 420X. Let's see if it all fits. Sure does. I'm all set. So I'm leaving 7:43 in the morning on February 26. I have about an 1,100-mile drive to get down to the Everglades, where I've got a campsite reserved at Long Pine Campground. Now this is enjoying retirement. Welcome everybody. Here I am. This is my campsite. That'll be home for me for about the next week. And now I'm heading off to give my new Sea Eagle 420X a try as a fishing kayak. I'm down here at the top of the Florida Keys. I'm launching, and we're going to go see how well this thing works as a fishing kayak. You may have seen a couple of my other videos. One of them, I showed some raw footage of where I caught a stingray, and another one where I was trying out various configurations, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I got lucky. This is one day where the wind was playing nicely. It was pretty rough the rest of the week. I did get some fishing in, but the wind was a little bit rougher than I expected. And talking to lots of other folks, this was a pretty rough winter for wind. Anyway, I get out there. This spot I had found on the internet, seen a few videos there while I did my internet scouting. And I figured it'd be a great spot to try out the new Sea Eagle to make sure that it and I work together. I first started by doing a drift. I caught that one fish, wasn't big enough to be a keeper, but I drifted inside the channel. Now I'm going to anchor up and do some fishing on the outsides of the channel. We'll talk about that anchor in a bit. I just loved that anchor. Unfortunately, I just used the past tense. That's because at the end of the video it got stuck and I had to cut the rope. But I got another one already. I've watched a lot of videos. They tell me that to catch mangrove snapper, all you have to do is put some chum out, stick a hook out, and they'll just line up waiting to jump on your fishing rod. Well, it isn't quite that simple. I'm a first-time do-it-yourselfer fisherman in Florida, so a lot of this was new to me. I had a blast, but let's just say the fish weren't jumping in the kayak to begin with. As I mentioned in one of my other videos, here is how I planned to set up my kayak. This is what I was thinking before I went down as to what one of my fishing configurations might be. And this was actually set up with both fishing and my spear gun. I ended up not doing any spear fishing down there because of the weather, but take out the spearfishing gear, and this was essentially the modification I used to do my fishing, and it worked out extremely well. I'll point out a few differences as we go along. Let's just watch the fishing now for a moment. Here I've caught a nice little fish, and as you saw, I pulled up an app. It's called Fish Rules. It's a very good app when you're going to some place you're not familiar with to help you identify the species and what the size limit is. Where I'm fishing is in a unique spot. It's right underneath Highway 1. In Florida, you have to watch out where you are because there's different rules you have to go by, whether you're in the Gulf or in the Bay, whether you're in state water or federal water. In this case, the bridge is the dividing line between the Atlantic fishing rules and the Gulf of Mexico fishing rules. So if you're on one side, certain hooks are allowed that aren't allowed on the other side, and the fish size are actually different depending upon which side of the bridge you're on. So Lots of things you got to learn when you head to a new place to fish, especially something that have completely different fish than I'm used to. In this case, here is a grunt. We'll see one of those guys later, and we'll hear why they are called grunts. I'm fishing under the pilings of the bridge, which, as I said when I did my internet scouting before, I had seen some nice fish pulled from here. I knew there would be small ones. We aren't out in the deep water. We aren't out in the ocean, coral heads and wrecks where the bigger versions of these guys are. But it was still worth a shot. I was hoping to catch a sheep's head, possibly a red, and some mangrove snapper. I didn't catch any sheep's head, didn't have any reds. I did have one strong hookup, but it went straight into the columns and cut the line. I did get quite a few mangrove snapper. A couple of them were big enough to keep, so I was pretty happy. This is a Yak Gear Bruce anchor. Weighs about 1.5 pounds, 1.75 pounds. It's only about $15, and it served me very well throughout this trip. For bait, I'm using a combination of live shrimp and cut bait that I picked up. I've got my chum bag out. Decided to head over. We'll try the other side for a bit. Let's see how that works out. They're deployed, and I actually have the rope wrapped around a extension cord wrap. It worked very well. You just have to make sure that you snug it in there. So here we are, catch another fish. This one's going to pull up. It's going to be another grunt. And let's just listen, and we'll find out why they're called grunts. This day I was out fishing for about 4.5 hours total. So believe me, there was a lot of time between these fish. The video makes it look like I was just catching them left and right. But if I tried to make this in real time, you guys would have stopped 10 minutes ago. So we sped this up just to give you some idea of what I was catching. And I really did have a good time down there. And as I said, caught a few that were worth keeping. Oh yeah, you're looking better. Next time I go down there, I'm going to skip the live shrimp. They seem to do nothing but feed the fish. Cut bait was a great thing to use. Just be careful. I went to a bait shop every day down there, and they were out of live, fresh bait. So I ended up getting some of their frozen things, and it was pretty mushy. I had to really be selective on which cuts I could use to keep it on the hook long enough to catch a fish. Now, if you look down between my legs, you can see some wood right there. That is a wooden serving tray I picked up at Walmart for about $10. It worked out perfectly. It's my cutting board. Obviously, with an inflatable kayak and knives, they don't really get along too well. But with that cutting board, it fit right between the two sidewalls and was in a perfect position and kept everything very safe. I think that was a great addition to this kayak. Overall, I was very happy with the Sea Eagle. It's a very comfortable kayak. It maneuvered very well in calm water. It was fairly quick. It would turn quickly. Had another one. I'll make another video where I was fishing out at Flamingo on the Everglades, and it became more of a challenge because I was in pretty high wind and fighting the current. But when you're taking those things into proper consideration, this experience proved to me that the Sea Eagle Explorer series is a excellent kayak if you want to do some traveling and take a kayak with you, but don't necessarily want your full-blown hard shell kayak. If it wasn't for that, I might be sitting out on the end of a pier like those guys were, fishing from shore. And I'd much rather be kicked back in my kayak enjoying the water. At the end of the day, I kept 2 of the grunts and 4 of the mangrove snappers. Cooked them up on a portable barbecue I brought for the trip, and they were excellent eating. As I said, they weren't huge here. That's just the nature of it. But what this really gave me was the confidence in fishing from this vessel and its maneuverability before I headed out into a little bit rougher water. And for that, it was a fantastic day. Really enjoyed it. The weather was good this day. The Sea Eagle is a fine craft. I highly recommend it. This is the 14-footer. Question becomes, is it a little big for one person? Nah, it's just right. And so here we are heading back to the boat launch, and I'm going to wrap it up. As always, I am enjoying retirement.